the one thing you do need to understand is this hubris of time, right, which we have, that we think that okay, I can postpone it to tomorrow and I can postpone it to day after and it's going to be okay. But that is something that is never, that is the one aspect I feel humanity is genuinely deluded about. You don't have time. Okay, you really don't. The more you wait, the worse it's going to get for you.
So I guess escapes are not really bad in that sense, as long as they are
very targeted escapes.
True. I also have been wondering now, when it comes to giving a solution to someone who is working from, see, normally office hours are from 9 to 5, for example. Now, we all know that it's never the case. Particularly in metro cities, to reach the office at 9, I need to leave at 7. And 5 is never 5. It goes to 7, 8, 9, whatever. By the time I am home, I'm talking from a patient's perspective. By the time I'm home, I'm so exhausted. I have my food, maybe scroll for some time and either doze off or maybe also get into some unhealthy habits like drinking, smoking, who knows? Or even late night. Okay, fine, I've had such a hard and long day. I'll go out with my friends, hang around till maybe 12:31 and then come back. Maybe do that kind of thing on a weekend. So by the time it is Monday, you get those Monday blues. I don't really find any practical solution to, because I have myself struggled with telling this to patients and how to deal with this. I really don't find any practical solution to this.
See, one way of looking at it is to be very practical, in the sense that if you don't do it, you know the outcome, right? If you do not make time for yourself in the day, and that is something you do need to see, that there are people who are able to manage despite the very busy schedules. Now, I understand that it is not easy, but the point is you also have to take into consideration that if I do not start incorporating these aspects into my life, what is waiting for me when I retire at 60, 65? I'm going to have a body that doesn't support me. I'm going to have a mind that is not structured at all, and I'm not going to be able to fulfill the dreams that I had. Okay, so that is one thing that can really, that the reality of the situation. The one thing you do need to understand is this hubris of time, right, which we have, that we think that okay, I can postpone it to tomorrow and I can postpone it to day after and it's going to be okay. But that is something that is never, that is the one aspect I feel humanity is genuinely deluded about. You don't have time. Okay, you really don't. The more you wait, the worse it's going to get for you. So one is to bite that very bitter pill and say that this is something that is my responsibility. It is my life. It is my responsibility. I have to take it on. The second thing that has helped me personally is to shift associations, right? So what has happened, like I told you in the beginning, when you talk about work, when it is introduced to you, it is introduced to you in a very negative manner. It's almost always introduced to you with a lot of stress or fear, that if you don't do this, I will give you one, or that some kind of threat that is given. Or the second thing is this immense amount of shame that is put on, that if you do not work this so many number of hours, that means you are a lazy person, you don't know whatever it is. So whenever you are associating with responsibilities, it is almost always a negative association. It is like, I either get to have fun or I have to work, right? Whereas if you actually understand what is boring is something you are not good at doing. Okay, the moment you become good at something, it starts to become enjoyable. Now, if in the medical background, I'm sure none of us like to study in the beginning. None of us like to. But as you got into it, and as your brain started to understand what it is that you wanted, there is a pattern in which you have to study in medicine, right? There's a very typical flowchart kind of pattern, that this happens and then it cascades into this, then this is the result that you get, and this is the symptom that you get. The moment your brain comes to know this is what you want, it becomes easier for you to study. The moment it becomes easier, it becomes interesting, and that is when it gets good. Okay, now this is the rule for anything in life. So if you want to pick up meditation, I think the moment, you must know this as a doctor, the moment you suggest meditation to a patient, 99% will roll their eyes at you and go, I'm not a person who can meditate. I can't keep quiet for even 1 minute. That's because when you are introducing it to them, you're introducing it with the concept that, see, your brain loves to think free flow. Okay, now you have to restrict it to only one particular thought or one particular sound and control it. The moment you introduce that sense of control and restriction, a person will reject the idea. But when you start selling it from the perspective of freedom, that when you learn how to meditate, you allow yourself the freedom of concentration. You learn to concentrate on what you want and you don't get bothered by things outside of you. You learn to decompress anywhere and anytime that you can. And that allows you to master situations in a much better way. It allows you to keep a hold in areas which would have otherwise brought an imbalance to you. If you sell it in that perspective, a person is more likely to embrace it. So that is where you need to start understanding that these avenues of life cannot be taught to you from a perspective of how academics was taught to us. It needs to be fun, right? If you don't introduce that element, fun and reward, that you're going to benefit a lot from doing these things, and it is not as difficult as you think. And the last is start small, take baby steps, and then build. So if a person does absolutely nothing, telling them to chalk out 2 hours in a day is going to be impossible. Start with 15 minutes. Start with 15 minutes consistently for 2 months, and ask them to come back and tell you how they have benefited from it. And take positive feedback. Like sometimes genuinely something that you tell them doesn't work, right? Meditation is not everybody's cup of tea, and that's fine.
I agree.
Right? So when they come back and genuinely tell you, doctor, this is not something that I enjoy, then you need to think of another avenue or another alternative for them. But if you tell them 15 minutes in the day, try and let me know how it goes, right? Where you don't take a moral high ground and then shame them saying, "Ha, tum itna bhi nahi karoge apne health ke liye," then, but with a sense of compassion, telling them that I understand what it is, but if you can do this, you will benefit from it, and it will give you the freedom that you are looking for. Because that's what everybody is struggling with, right? They're restricted by their jobs, they're restricted by their families, they're restricted by their social responsibilities, and you're giving them one more restriction now, right? So the way you talk to them also needs to really change, and you really need to sell it from that perspective that I'm trying to show you to how to become the master of your life at this given juncture. And if you're able to master it, what lands up happening is you get the freedom to start interacting it the way you want to interact, right? But that initial discomfort is always there, right? And that is something you need to tell people, that initially it will be annoying, it will be boring, but it gets better from then onwards. So I think speaking to them in this particular manner might invite them to at least start trying to get into certain avenues.